He goes up, reaches, and in an instant, the whole afternoon turns. Jaden Daniels, back on the field after weeks out with a dislocated left elbow, is stripped by an interception and slammed to the turf on that same left side. He limps away to the sideline, disappears into the medical tent, and then the reality becomes brutal and immediate. The comeback ends before it really begins. The Vikings rolled to a 31-0 shutout, and Washington left Minneapolis with two of its most important players hurt and a season that feels more fragile than ever. ESPN.com, it was supposed to be a test of resilience. Daniels, the rookie who won Offensive Rookie of the Year and the face of Washington's future, had been cleared to return and started the game determined to claw the team out of an ugly skid. Instead, midway through the third quarter, a tipped pass turned into an interception and the kind of hit that turns optimism into worry. He spent minutes in the sideline tent, then watched the rest from the bench. Marcus Mariota came on, completed a couple of throws, but the offense never found traction. The scoreboard frozen at 0 reads like a ledger of missed chances and the sudden need for Plan B. ESPN.com, then came the play that tightened throats across the league. In the second half, Zach Ertz leapt for a downfield throw and came down in a nightmare collision. Contact just above the knee, a leg that folded, and a veteran stalwart who couldn't put weight back on it. He was in tears as trainers helped him off and was carted to the locker room. The images were awful to watch and immediate in consequence. Dan Quinn said he feared a torn ACL, and the team scheduled imaging to find the exact diagnosis. For a 35-year-old who returned this year to keep playing the game he loves, the possibility that this is season-ending, maybe career-ending, feels like a cruel coda. AP News. The game itself never offered much hope of a comeback. J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings controlled tempo, converted long drives, and kept Washington pinned with field position and sustained possessions. Minnesota's offense was efficient, and their drives felt purposeful, the kind of methodical football that crushes morale as much as it piles up yards. By the time the fourth quarter arrived, the score had become a statement, 31-0, a rout that exposed gaps across the Commanders' roster and left coaches with a long list of structural repairs. The Washington Post. In football, injuries change narratives faster than any highlight reel can. Daniels' return had been a calculated risk. See if the rookie could handle live reps, see how the elbow held up, and give the franchise a chance to evaluate the rest of the roster. The play that knocked him out wasn't a designed hit. It was messy, ordinary contact football that ended up re-aggravating the same joint. That's exactly what makes the moment so dangerous. It's not a freak, once-in-a-million hit. It's an everyday collision with career-altering consequence. Coaches will say they'll wait for MRI results, but the tape they'll play first is that fall, and the conversations will shift from what if to what now. Reuters' Ertz's injury lands like a punch for reasons beyond the field. He's a leader in that locker room, a veteran who's been a reliable red zone target for years, and a steady voice for younger players. Losing him strips this team of experience at a moment when the locker room is already thin on confidence. If the feared ACL tear is confirmed, the calculus for Washington's season will change overnight. Snaps for younger tight ends, a sudden need for replacement route running in the red area, and the emotional toll on a team watching a beloved veteran go down in tears. AP News. There's a cold logic to the scoreboard that will drive decisions now. Washington fell to 3-10, piled up an 8th straight loss, and watched their playoff hopes fade to a numerical afterthought. Practically, the weeks ahead will define new priorities. Protect the long-term health of a franchise asset if Daniels requires shutdown, give meaningful reps to backups so the roster has anything resembling depth, and manage the optics of a franchise slowly slipping into rebuild mode without the chaos of a full teardown. The medical timelines, not the final box score, will dictate the next moves. Reuters. There are human stories nested inside the clinical diagnoses. Marcus Mariota, who replaced Daniels, did his job in a blunt, limited way, a couple of throws, an interception, no miracle comeback. He's not the long-term answer, but today's script makes the front office evaluate whether they need to accelerate searches for stability under center. And the locker room watched a veteran like Ertz cry while being carted off, a sight that lands differently than any stat line. It's a reminder of the sport's stakes, that careers are finite and the margins between heroics and heartbreak are terrifyingly thin. NBC Sports expect the coverage this week to be clinical, relentless, and sympathetic in turns. Reporters will press for MRI updates, for exact timelines, and for quotes that translate fear into fact. Coaches will speak carefully about early indications and hope for the best, while the medical staff runs tests that will determine roster blueprints for January and beyond. The fans, meanwhile, will oscillate between worry for the players and anger about a season evaporating into injuries and misfortune. That's the cruel theater of late-season NFL, grief for what might have been mixed with the business-like work of how to move forward. AP News, but even in the worst moments, teams can find new purpose. Crises force clarity. Who steps up? Who's ready? Who needs to be kept healthy for next spring? If the MRI comes back kinder than feared, the roster regains a thread of continuity. If not, Washington must pivot to protect its future, using today as an accelerant to deeper evaluation. Either way, the next steps are practical: surgical timelines, rehab plans, and a roster reshuffle that will test the front office's patience and planning. AP News right now, the images are what linger. Daniels on the sideline, Ertz carted off with a towel over his head, trainers and teammates with tight faces. Those frames will be the first things the coaches pull up on Monday morning and the last thoughts a team keeps at night. The season's scoreboard is a simple number, but the real cost is measured in ankles, confidence, and the quiet hours before final decisions are made. For the Commanders, this Sunday was a reckoning, not just about a loss, but about what they're willing to sacrifice and what they must protect. The coming week will tell us which. ESPN.com. The Washington Commanders' Week 14 nightmare deepened in Minnesota. After losing starting quarterback Jaden Daniels to a re-aggravated left elbow injury, the team watched veteran tight end Zach Ertz suffer what coaches fear may be a torn ACL on a leaping catch attempt, a play that ended with Ertz being carted off in tears. Daniels, making his first appearance back after a prior dislocated left elbow, left early in the third quarter after being shoved to the turf while chasing a turnover. Backup Marcus Mariota replaced him. Minutes later, Mariota lofted a pass downfield to Ertz, who went up to make the play and was struck in the knee by Viking safety Jay Ward before he hit the ground. Ertz was immediately tended to on the field and ruled out for the remainder of the game. Post-game, Coach Dan Quinn said the team feared a torn ACL pending further testing. The result was a brutal 31-0 loss for Washington, which fell to 3-10 and extended its losing streak to 8 games. The Vikings dominated from the opening whistle. J.J. McCarthy threw 3 touchdowns, and Minnesota controlled the game on both sides of the ball, while Washington's offense never found any traction amid the injuries and turnovers. Ertz, 35, had been a reliable red zone target all season. Through Week 14, he had 49 catches for 493 yards and 4 touchdowns, production that often coincided with Daniels' starts. If the ACL diagnosis is confirmed, Ertz would miss the remainder of the 2025 season. At his age, he also carries heavy career implications for a longtime veteran who has already spoken about appreciating each year he gets to play. Washington now faces immediate personnel and schematic decisions. The team will await MRI and surgical evaluations for Ertz, while also assessing Daniels' elbow. Both updates will shape short-term game plans and off-season strategy. With an already depleted roster and playoff hopes effectively dead, the Commanders must prioritize medical clarity and determine whether to lean on Marcus Mariota, turn to practice squad options, or explore veteran help the rest of the way. For the Vikings, the win snapped a brief skid and showcased a balanced performance on a day Washington's injury misfortune overshadowed the box score. For Washington, Sunday was an ugly reminder of how quickly a season can unravel. Injuries stack,